For anyone to care about these issues, we have to make them hyperlocal. We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF.
Zoran Mamdani repeatedly said on panels over the last 5 years, when he was talking about defunding the NYPD, he said the NYPD learned to abuse minorities from the IDF. He was talking about some kind of exchange program of 20 cops a year. The NYPD has exchange programs with Singapore and Qatar and Amman, Jordan. It has an actual permanent office in Jordan, at Mexico, where there's thousands of extrajudicial killings by police. But for some reason, Mamdani thought that the 34,000 officers of the NYPD, when they abuse a minority person in New York, which happens sometimes, he literally would have this favorite line of his. He would say on panels, I've seen these videos, he would say, the NYPD abuses minorities or whatever, and then he would say, and the IDF laced its boots. And it's this idea that how could a 20 cop a year exchange program where they learn, among other things, how to police multi-ethnic areas, which the Israel police has a lot of experience in, among other things, tactics for hostage situations. How could those 20 cops come back to the 34,000 strong NYPD and teach them how to abuse? I mean, do American police really need the Israelis in principle to know that they can fail to serve minorities properly? The whole idea of positioning Israel as the distillation of whatever the great evil is that you perceive, that's anti-Semitism perfectly. That's the structure, that's the purpose of anti-Semitism, and it's now applied to Israel in ways that are totally intellectually incoherent.
Moses was not a Jew. Moses was a Muslim. Jesus was not a Jew. He was a Muslim. Abraham couldn't have been Jewish. He definitely couldn't have been Christian. So what was he? He was a Muslim. That's it. Islam is the final revelation. They have the Old Testament. They have the New Testament. Well, the Quran is the final testament. Takbir! Takbir! Takbir!
You've gotten a lot of pushback on your comments about Mamdani, many claiming you haven't brought any receipts for your Islamist claims. Can you clarify that for us?
6 days after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, he's talking about Israel being culpable for genocide in Gaza. Okay, it's a blood libel now. It was especially a blood libel then, and gives you X-ray vision into his moral priorities. I can say with great conviction that he's an apologist for Islamists, right? And he knows much more than he's letting on, and there's something very sinister happening there right now. So I don't know how deep his religious convictions run, but I mean, all of this is knit together. The Muslim Brotherhood is an Islamist organization. Hamas is a spawn of the Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas is a jihadist organization. He's too deep in the weeds of Islamist activism not to know what the Muslim Brotherhood has been up to for the last century. He knows what the phrase globalize the Intifada really means, not what it can seem to mean when it's on the lips of confused freshmen on the campus of Columbia University. He knows it's a call for suicidal terrorism against Jews worldwide. That's what globalize the Intifada means. So he knows what the culture is over, in the West Bank and Gaza. He knows that Hamas is still popular in both places. He knows that Hamas would win an election today if it ran in both places. He knows that Hamas is a genocidal organization, a really genocidal organization. He knows all that, and yet when asked to disavow and condemn the use of the phrase globalize the Intifada, the best he can muster after months of arm twisting, and where it becomes a real campaign, obstacle. All he can say is, "It's not my language." Everyone can remember when Donald Trump, when asked about the Proud Boys, said, "Stand back, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by," right? And so what was wrong with that? Right? What was wrong with that is when given an opportunity to disavow a white supremacist goon squad on our political landscape, all he could think to say was stand back and stand by. And one got the sense that he wasn't just confused. He wasn't just rambling. He was choosing his words. He was doing a kind of high wire act in front of what he considers to be his base, which has to include white supremacists and neo-Nazis and racists and moral lunatics. Mamdani is playing the same game, and I think it's even more sinister than what Trump was up to there, because Mamdani could clearly disavow the phrase globalized intifada and make contact with what's wrong with it, but he doesn't want to.
Last Ramadan, I was with many of you here at the procession on the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Ali, alayhi salam. It is a privilege to be here with you once again. I stand before you as the first Muslim mayor in our city's history, and this year as the first Jummah that I have attended in that new position. And to do so together, it is a reminder that in this month of Ramadan, as we find moments of reflection, of recommitment, moments of community, that we always do so together. And it is together that I am thankful to be here today, and I'm thankful to have the opportunity to lead our city. Assalamu alaikum.
وأسأل الله أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن يجعلني من المنتظرين لك والتابعين والناصرين لك على أعدائك والمستشهدين بين يديك في جملة أوليائك والفرج فيه للمؤمنين على يديك وقتل الكافرين بسيفك.
الموت لأمريكا! الموت لأمريكا! الموت لأمريكا!
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth."
They banned the pride flag. So now you have an all-Muslim city council and mayor, and now they've taken down all the pride flags. One of the best examples, I think, of suicidal empathy happening in real time is a town in Michigan called Hamtramck. And I believe it was the first town in the United States that authorized the Muslim call to prayer in the morning. The liberal people in that town wanted to protect Muslim rights. There was a whole bunch of people from Bangladesh and I think Armenia coming into the town. And these were the people who were very much pro-LGBTQ++. So they welcomed tons of refugees into their small town, who eventually became the majority. And then what happened is you got the first mayor from this country. City council became all Muslim. It's an example of you have to be careful of the unintended consequences of good intentions. Because what happened in that town this year is that they banned the pride flag. So now you have an all-Muslim city council and mayor, and now they've taken down all the pride flags. And the liberal now women who were behind this whole movement are now like, what's going on? And now they're being completely rebuked. And it reminds me of communism, where the agitators and the revolutionaries are just useful idiots for the people who want to take power. And whether it's communists, people from a different country or worldview, take a look at that town. Tell me what you think about it, because I think that is a little microcosm of what could happen on a grand scale in Europe and North America if we're not sure about making sure people share our values before we put them in a position to take over. Here's a story of how a liberal town that was very pro-LGBTQ went to a town that now bans Pride Month and pride flags.
Every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands. Everyone agree. Everyone agree. Brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind, and that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that? Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists? Subhanallah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajids, Norway, or are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you're like this extreme Islam net sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosques? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar. So what's the politicians gonna say now? What's the media gonna say now? That we're all extremists? We're all radicals? We need to deport all of us from this country?
Every Democrat knows that the religious beliefs of Christians, of fundamentalist Christians, matter, right, and have political consequences. That they form their political priorities. They inform what they will do in the world. So, Christian opposition to abortion or same-sex marriage or teaching evolution in schools, right? every Democrat, every person left of center in our politics understands that those are religious convictions that are affecting the lives of everyone, not just Christians, right? And yet, for some reason, Islam never affects anything, right? These heartfelt religious beliefs of 2 billion Muslims never make contact with terrestrial reality. It doesn't matter if embassies burn over cartoon controversies. It doesn't matter if Jews are getting stabbed on the streets of London as recently as last week. Religion is never to blame for any of this, right? The people like Mamdani and Mehdi Hassan and Reza Aslan, and then all the useful idiots who don't happen to be Muslim, Glenn Greenwald and Chris Hedges and Rory Stewart, and I mean just all these people who I've collided with over the years are, I mean, there's just a massive double standard preventing an honest discussion of psychological and social and political reality. And if you're going to recognize it in our own religious maniacs, right? If I have a devout Christian on who happens to be Pete Hegseth's pastor, who is open-minded about chattel slavery because it's in the Bible, and you see the problem with all of that, you have to see the problem with people who chant globalize the Intifada, knowing what the Intifada was, right? And 77% of Democrats, but based on that single poll on that question about genocide, I guarantee you are confused about all that, and that's going to be a disaster in 2 years. He's not my primary concern, nor is Hassan Piker. But my primary concern is the fact that we have a New York Times and a Democratic Party who think these two guys are the future of Democratic politics, and that is suicide, right? That in 2028. That is going to be suicide.
This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be a part of, Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. So I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it in every single district. It should tremble. Brooklyn should hear it. The Bronx should hear it. Queens should hear it. Say it as if the Ummah depends on this, my brothers and sisters. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadan Rasulullah. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah, the God of Jesus, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, and the God of the last and final prophet Muhammad. Oh, don't scare them, brothers. Relax. They're over here on purpose to be like, oh my God. Who's seen those videos where they're like, oh my God, the Muslims are taking over New York City? You seen those? You seen those? Let them know that we are taking over New York City. Takbir!
Don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. No.
A couple of months ago, I went to the Al-Quds Day gathering in London, just for a laugh. You're always guaranteed a laugh at Al-Quds Day.
U.S. imperialist, #1 terrorist!
They're a laugh a minute, these people. And I can tell you now that I have never in my life been in the company of so many tossers. Genuine tossers. And I know this is not profound political analysis, but they were the rudest, most obnoxious people I've met in a very long time. There's a 4-letter word I would use if it wasn't for the fact that Tom and the team have been organizing this esteemed conference for so long. So I won't use it. I'll use it in the pub later on. Horrible people. To be fair, I didn't catch them on a good day because a few days earlier, the Ayatollah had been killed, bless him, in that brilliant anti-fascist airstrike by the IDF. So they were sad. They were grief-stricken. They were upset. And admittedly, I didn't help matters because I was going around to some of the weeping women and saying, cheer up. You know, it's not the end of the world. There'll be another Ayatollah around any time now. And there was. There was, and according to US intelligence, he's a homosexual. So I did try to explain, don't cry. You've got your first ever gay Ayatollah. This is a wonderful moment for Islam. But they wouldn't listen. There was this bristling atmosphere of hostility. There was anti-Semitism, of course. There was anti-Westernism. There was this snarky, angry, self-pitying atmosphere. This kind of cloying, depthless self-pity. The young women were the worst, by far. They all had their veil on. They kept snitching on me to the men every time I said something out of order. It really brought to mind Orwell's 1984, where we're told that the young women were the most bigoted adherents to the party. Orwell says they were the swallowers of slogans and the nosers out of unorthodoxy. And they essentially pushed me out of this gathering. They kind of physically pushed me out. The police had to escort me away onto a Lime bike and then wave me off to make sure I was safe. And I was grateful that the police escorted me away. But then another part of me thought, hold on, are the Metropolitan Police conspiring with these Islamist freaks to remove the bloke who dared to take the piss out of the Ayatollah? And that is indeed what happened that day. It was an unholy alliance of woke policing and Islamist intolerance, and I was the victim of it. And it struck me that day that these people, these angry, self-pitying, this mob of people who couldn't bear my jokes about the Ayatollah, it struck me that they are the end product of British society's suicidal indulgence of Islam. And that display of such arrogant certitude on their part, such rigid dogmatism, that is what happens when we tell people their religion is perfect. When we tell them it is so perfect that it is bigotry to criticize it. When we tell them it is so perfect that it is a punishable offense to criticize it. You might lose your job, you might even lose your head. That has literally happened in Europe. Our indulgence of the nonsense idea that Islam is beyond criticism, is beyond the moral reproach of us plebs, that is what has given young Muslims in Britain a license to behave in a staggeringly unfree, unjust, and un-British way. How do we make it clear to these people that you absolutely cannot behave in this way in our free, open, democratic society? My Al Could Stay Out brought home to me that the true problem we have in this country right now is not Islamophobia, it's Islamophilia. That's the problem we have. British society has recklessly given a green light to the sanctification of the Muslim identity and the demonization of anti-Islam sentiment. We end up with an Islamic version of what our Christian forebears suffered in the 14th century, which is these gangs of arrogant religious pricks going around telling people what they can think and what they can say and shoving blasphemers like me off the streets. And of course, there's much worse. All I had to do was get on a Lime bike and then I was back to civilization. But there is much worse than that. There is violent behavior as well. There have been bombings and beheadings and mass stabbings, all motored by that cloying combination of self-regard and self-pity that allows politicized Muslims to treat their critics as demons. What we see on a day-by-day basis is, functionally speaking, Islamism. When you see women with their faces covered in the fashion of medieval society, when you see those annoying spectacles of mass public praying and gangs in Whitechapel trying to silence Christian preachers, and Islamic youths saying, fuck Israel, fuck the Jews, victory to Hamas. When working class Brits say that this is incompatible with British society, they are right. When they say Islam is incompatible with British society, that is what they are talking about. That narcissistic culture of performative piety and religious intolerance and just a staggering indifference to the concerns and beliefs of the majority of British society. Let's be clear, when a third-generation British Muslim woman or girl covers her face with a black sackcloth, she is saying, fuck you to Britain. She is insulting the good people of this country. She is saying that our men are so rapacious and our women are such sluts that it falls to her to show us the right, righteous way. That's what's being said. And that feels to people like Islamism, and it's what Islam has become in this country as a consequence of the reckless politicization of that identity. Just to finish, I'll come back to this later, there are a number of things we can do to address this. I think there are some short-term things we can do and long-term things. Short-term, I think we should ban the covering of faces in public areas. You should not be allowed to do that. We should ban mass public praying. I know that will catch all sorts of religious groups. That's life. Mosques that openly celebrated 7th of October, they should be investigated and shut down. We have freedom of religion in this country, but it stops the minute you celebrate the murder of Jewish people. Then it's revoked. And then more long-term, we need to re-establish the virtues of our society. We need to become more assertive. We need more people like me, not to blow my own trumpet, who will go to Al-Quds Day and say to these people, you are really fucking annoying and you need to stop. Thank you.